Hi, I'm Mitra Sorrells in the PhocusWire Studio at Phocuswright Europe, and I am joined by CarTrawler CEO Cormac Barry and COO Peter Donovan. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So let's talk a bit, first of all, about some of the trends you are seeing this summer.
Yeah, really interesting trends in car rental this summer. Unfortunately, the car rental industry is still suffering the effects of the pandemic. There's a global shortage of cars in the world, so it's driven by a shortage of microchips globally.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of the car manufacturers cancelled all their orders for microchips during the pandemic. And then when it came time, when demand's returning, that's had a huge impact on the manufacture of cars. So global fleets are down about 30%.
Wow.
And even up to 50% in terms of the leisure market. So we've seen very extreme pricing this summer. Many locations' prices are 2 to 3 times what they were in 2019,
Wow.
and the consumer is not happy.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a bit more then. What does that mean? I mean, what are the implications of that?
Yeah, as we are getting more and more into the summer and closer to peak, we're seeing quite significant impacts on conversion. We're hearing this across the sector. And I think, unfortunately, the industry's boxed itself into a corner where it's set high prices and it now doesn't want to lower them for fear that customers will cancel and rebook at those lower prices. Right. So I think we're going to see sustained high prices through the summer. And I think the industry scored a little bit of an own goal, unfortunately.
Wow, it's very interesting the way this has all developed, you know. So then what would be some of your thoughts then around moving forward and coming out of this and future strategy? Yeah,
I mean, there's also some really positive consumer trends and trends in the industry, you know, really coming to life. So straight to car has now become a reality. So the ability to bypass the dreaded desk in the airport,
right.
That's finally come to life at scale. So, you know, a lot of the suppliers now have very viable key and go or straight to car offers. So you can now go to a car with your phone, the phone will unlock the car and you get in and drive away. So it just takes away all that hassle and all that queuing at the airport. Really exciting. We're also seeing the acceleration of the adoption of electric vehicles. So there's a lot of the car rental companies now would be aiming to have 25 to 30% of their fleets electric by 2025. So that's really coming to life now. Hertz ordered 100,000 Teslas. You know, that was big in the media. Also a big order from Polestar. And, you know, all the companies are now embracing this and there's significant consumer demand for those products.
Okay, so I have 2 questions related to what you just said. First of all, as far as the straight to car, that helps to address some of the staffing challenges potentially,
Absolutely.
Correct?
Yeah, so the reason, you know, a lot of the suppliers are really fast tracking that this summer is that exact reason. So like everyone else, they're really struggling to hire staff and train staff. So this obviously eases that issue and it's just a far superior customer experience. So yeah, we're really excited about that and we're working really actively with the suppliers to bring that to life.
And then the electric car opportunity, is that a higher price point for the consumer?
Yes, currently.
And does it need to be?
Well, in theory, no, because the maintenance costs on electric vehicles are actually much lower than the traditional ICE car and internal combustion engine because there's much less parts, there's much less to go wrong. So it's actually really about teaching the customer about the use case, getting over range anxiety. So,
right.
You know, but that said, a lot of people will try out an electric car for the first time through rental, and that will get them comfortable with it, and then that might, you know, spur them on to actually buy an electric car. But yeah, I think that's going to be a really big trend now over the next few years.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's talk a bit about loyalty and how that is evolving and its relationship to ancillaries.
Yeah, we've seen loyalty obviously grow significantly in car rental. So obviously in the US, it's all about loyalty, and we're seeing that trend move into Europe as well. So in US, for example, we went live with United Airlines earlier this year, and supporting their loyalty program as well. And the reason that that's such a compelling proposition to United Airlines is it allows their customers to both earn and burn their air miles points when they rent a car as well. And airlines typically want to increase the number of interactions they have with their customers, provide value through their loyalty programs. And they see car rental as a really important use case to expand their offering across. And more in Europe, we're seeing that come into effect as well. So CarTrawler is really well positioned to support our partners in expanding their loyalty programs and effectively delighting their customers when they can kind of rent, particularly now in an environment of very high prices, to fully pay or part pay for that car rental through loyalty points.
And what other types of product offerings then can be offered beyond the traditional car rental? I mean, there's a lot of happening with mobility right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of our other offerings that we have is mobility. So that's everything from e-hailing to private transfer. And actually there's an interesting sort of price point change that's happened in the market at the moment, given the higher prices of cars. Private transfers is actually becoming more competitive at price points. So if you're flying into lots of demand into, say, Sunbelt Spain, the price of a car rental is very expensive. You might actually be better off getting a private transfer where a driver comes, picks you up at the airport, drops you to your hotel. So actually that's really driven volume that we're seeing in terms of that sort of replacement product into mobility.
Interesting. So I know last year you announced a partnership with Uber. Can you talk a bit more about any other partnership opportunities that you see?
Yeah, I mean, we actually signed more deals than we expected through the pandemic. So Peter talked about United. We went live with Eurowings. We went live with Hopper. We went live with Uber. Uber is about to start rolling out in Europe. So we expect to launch in the UK this summer and then roll that offer out to the rest of Europe with Uber. So very excited about that. Also interesting deals with airport lounges businesses, loyalty businesses. So really just showed the ubiquity of the car rental offer, and that's relevant to a lot of different audiences. So really exciting, and we think there's lots more growth to come in those areas.
Interesting. Let's talk also about anything happening related to peer-to-peer car sharing and partnerships there. I mean, that's certainly an area that's growing. I know at least in the US, there's a lot of buzz about that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Turo's the big story there, very exciting. And, I think that potentially the high price of car is going to create a price point and finally bring peer-to-peer to life. Obviously, that model's been around for the last 10 to 50 years and hasn't really got traction. So, yeah, we're watching that really closely and, considering whether we should invest into that space.
Okay. So I know you had your last funding was in 2020, is that right? 100 million euros. Talk to me a bit about what that creates for you and any of your opportunities for growth looking ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we were really lucky. We had a change of ownership at the start of the pandemic. We were bought by a private equity firm called Towerbrook. They had a really long-term view on the recovery and invested into the business through the recovery. So we took that opportunity to really focus on our core capabilities. So big investments into revenue management, into the back-end technology, and into our sort order at the front end, rolling out a new payments platform currently. Also looking at some fintech products as well. So it's really allowed us to double down on the business and really, reinforce our position as the leading best-in-class provider of car rental mobility to the industry.
That word fintech, so we're hearing that a lot. Talk a bit more about, where the opportunities might be there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting in car. Obviously there may be opportunities in terms of price freeze. We're also looking at giving customers the ability to bid for upgrades. Okay. Give them more comfort in terms of different types of cancellation policies. We have our data scientists and the guys working on the algorithms at the moment. We're looking forward to rolling out some products in that space in the second half of the year.
Okay, and so give me a sense then as you look ahead to the coming year, what are like the top one or two things on the to-do list for CarTrawler?
Yeah, I think Cormac mentioned on the product front there, one of the benefits we've had in a different way to maybe other travel brands is we've invested through the cycle. So we've invested heavily into, as Cormac mentioned, our revenue management platforms. So really bringing more pricing sophistication into the market. And at a time like now where there's uber high pricing, our ability to be able to revenue manage is even more important, to be able to convert that demand at the right price point. So really excited about developing a new machine learning algorithm for pricing our car content, which we successfully did for our insurance content earlier this year to great success. So that will be one element of it as well. We're also significantly investing in our front ends. Developing faster, easier to use customer interfaces, which we share with our partners. So really be those two fronts that I'm most excited about from a delivery perspective.
Yeah, and additionally loyalty. So investing further and further into the loyalty platform, looking to roll out multi-supplier loyalty models, and talking to lots of partners about that space. So I think there's a lot to come in loyalty.
Yeah, and I would just, getting back just to what we were talking about related to the electric vehicles, I just would ask, do you see is there any way that kind of the industry or the partners you work with or CarTrawler itself can be more proactive in encouraging consumers to give that a try and to see that as a viable option?
We've seen that a lot of partners are really pushing the sort of ESG side of things, and that's really helping us and both our suppliers really deliver a solution that's sort of more compelling for consumers. So, for example, earlier this year, we've developed new eco car branding across the website and our touch points. So customers are very clear where eco content is available, how to access it, how to use it, and looking at elements like carbon offsetting as well in the future as well. Could we do that? So could we allow consumers the ability to pay for a part or full carbon offsetting of their car rental as well? So it's a very, it's certainly in the last 6 months has gone from a sort of a low-level conversation is something that is very much at the forefront of all our partners and suppliers' conversations, which is great because it's arrived, people are taking it seriously, and I'd expect it to move quite significantly over the next 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, the point you made about potentially consumers try this out in a car rental environment and then realize that it's not scary or, anxiety inducing to drive an electric car, then transfers over to their day-to-day habits. That's a really interesting idea.
And markets where, this is at scale. So like the likes of Norway, the infrastructure is there. So the adoption's really high. You can't take a Tesla for a test drive. So often the only way you can get your hands on a Tesla if you haven't driven one before is to rent one.
Right.
And so often people will take them for 2 or 3 days and go, oh my God, this is amazing. I definitely need to buy one of these. It's a really interesting use case. And, I think that's growing quite strongly.
Yeah, wonderful. All right. Well, Cormac and Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to see you.
Thanks.
Thank you.